This is the brand new Panasonic S1R II. This is the brand new Panasonic S1R version 2. Now it features a brand new full frame 44 megapixel sensor and a lot of trick features for hybrid shooters. Lots to talk about with this camera, so let's get into it. Now when Panasonic brought out the original S1 series, everybody was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Finally, we're getting a full frame sensor from Panasonic, so it's exciting to see what the second generation is going to bring with the very popular S1R is. Now we do have a brand new 44 megapixel sensor, but if you look at the design of the camera, it doesn't look that much different from the original S1R, but there are some key differences there. Some things I really like for those hybrid videographers and photographers, we do have a tally lamp on both the front and the back of the camera, which is really nice when you are in front of the camera to see if it's actually recording or not. The other thing I really like about this camera is the articulating screen. It's that new design where it's tilting up and down, but also off to the side as well. Very flexible, not really any angle you can't get into properly with it. We also step up our video cards as well. Now we have a CF Express Type B card as well as an SD card rather than dual SD cards what the previous generation had. We also have an improved viewfinder. It's 5.7 million dots now, which is really nice to work with. The other thing that's improved drastically is the stabilization. We now are up to 8 stops of stabilization. So if you are a photographer and a videographer, you're gonna find that extra stabilization is very handy. And part of that is the first full frame camera to feature handheld high-res mode. I mean, you can take that 44 megapixel sensor, and now with the handheld high-res mode, I can get a 177 megapixel file out of this camera handheld. It's pretty impressive that it can do that, and it's a lot of work to make that happen, but it's very fun, and it's nice to have that option from a still standpoint. Another nice feature is the auto shutter closing when I am changing lenses. It's nice to have that happen so I can keep dust off the sensor if I'm in a particularly dry or dusty environment. I don't have to worry about that. It's that extra level of protection. Now when it comes to the weight of this camera, it's significantly lighter than the original S1R. That one came in at 1,016 grams. This one coming in at 795 grams. That's quite a big weight savings. I mean, it's much closer in weight to the S5 II than it is to the S1R original. So I quite appreciate that Panasonic has taken the time and effort to make this camera smaller and lighter for both stills and videography. Now Panasonic is marketing this camera as a hybrid shooter's camera, great for both stills and for videographers. So let's talk about the still side of it first. What it's like to be as a photographer to shoot with this camera. We have a brand new sensor from Panasonic. It's 44 megapixels and it has 14 stops of dynamic range. It's very impressive, but it's not a stacked sensor. So we have that extra range that we sometimes lose a little bit when it comes to the stacked sensors. And the one thing Panasonic's always had a little bit of a struggle with is the autofocus side of things, and we have that Panasonic wobble. And they've improved that quite drastically every generation, and this one's no exception. It certainly is much more confidence inspiring when I'm shooting stills with that. And I also like that they've added so much into this camera as far as the subject recognition. I mean, they have everything: planes, trains, automobiles, motorbikes, you name it, they have got it covered. It's quite impressive to see all the profiles they built into this camera. I think it's probably a record of the different cameras in the market of what subjects it's able to detect. Now you can do that at 10 frames per second in 12-bit, and if you go 14-bit, you can go down to 9 frames per second with mechanical shutter. If you want to go much faster than that, stick to electronic shutter, you can go up to 40 frames per second. They've also included a pre-burst function in this camera as well, so you can shoot 1.5 seconds before you actually press the shutter button. It's really impressive, and it makes shooting those very fleeting moments like baseball and stuff much easier to shoot. I quite like that they're throwing all that into there. We also have this really nice viewfinder. 5.7 million dots is a really nice and pleasant viewfinder to work with. I mean, from a photographer's standpoint, I'm not seeing a huge improvement from the previous generations. They've been pretty decent, but I'm finding this camera lends itself a lot more to the video side of things, and that's where they've thrown everything in the kitchen sink at this camera. Let's talk about that next. From a photographer's standpoint, I do like that Panasonic has their camera so logically laid out. So when my eye's up at the viewfinder, I can easily navigate it, and there's some nice little tactile features on the camera, like the ISO button has a little bump on here, so my finger rests on it. I know that's the ISO button, and the exposure compensation's to the right, white balance is to the left. I can understand these things and work with this while my eye's still at the viewfinder. Now when it comes to videography, I'm finding this is where this camera really shines. This is where they've thrown everything at it. From a photographer's standpoint, it's an advancement and a refinement of the previous generation Panasonic cameras, but I think it's the video side of things that this camera is really going to shine. So of course with Panasonic, they love video, so they're going to throw everything at this camera. I mean, take a look at what they did with the GH7 last year. This was a micro four thirds camera, but it was a very heavily spec'd video camera with all kinds of great features. And it's no different with this S1R II. And the headline features are, it's the first Panasonic camera to shoot 8K video. Now it does 8K video at 30 frames in 420 10-bit, which is pretty impressive. This camera also features 6K open gate. This is great for content creators who are using multiple formats. We can work with that so much in post-production. This camera can also shoot 4K 120 at 422 10-bit. Now this camera does come loaded with all kinds of LUTs that you can apply to your photos and your videos so you have the same look in both formats. Plus you can customize these looks you want through the Panasonic app, and it's really a lot of fun to kind of create your own particular look and not one that's sort of canned out of the camera itself. Now you can actually live stream directly through this camera through your phone, which is pretty cool, or plug it into your computer and use it as a webcam, adds that versatility. Now something that I'm finding is brand new for Panasonic is their app, and it's their Flow app. Now when we're out shooting content, we are trying to storyboard some things, we're trying to make arrangements and figure out what our shot list is, but we forever are forgetting certain clips here and there, and not till we get back to the office that we realize, man, we forgot this clip. Through this app, you can quickly and easily create these storyboards that you can apply and work with while you're recording. And as you're recording, you can click them off and you can edit them, what have you. You can get through them, and really helps with your shot list throughout the day. Beyond that, you can simply use your phone as an external monitor as well. Now, as much as I like this nice screen on the back here, having a much bigger phone or a bigger monitor certainly is a nice feature to have. So overall, Panasonic has produced a very potent stills camera and a very powerful video camera, all in this brand new S1R II. Now it is a pre-production camera, so we can't dig into the files as much as I'd like to, but I'm looking forward to spending more time with this camera and really seeing what it's capable of doing. I really like the fact that Panasonic has made this camera so versatile, both on a still standpoint. 44 megapixels is plenty of resolution. The ability to go into 177 megapixel high resolution mode is kind of fun to play with that, but it's the stabilization that I really like. Being able to shoot those more suspect shutter speeds certainly is nice to have that tool at my disposal that I can get away with it and shoot some relatively low shutter speeds and still get great quality content with it. And when it comes to the video side of things, 8K video is kind of a nice big spec to be able to brag about. However, the 6K open gate is more impressive to me, but I'm finding I'm using the 4K 120 way more than I'm doing any of those other two formats, and I like that versatility. But the fact that I can take this camera out in any situation I need it. If I need to live stream something, I can do that wirelessly through the camera. If I need to do a high-end video production, I can certainly do that. And they've kept nice touches. We do have like full-size HDMI cables and the ability to go 32-bit float recording if I add the additional XLR handle to it. Overall, Panasonic has made a camera that is very spec heavy, but very well laid out and easy to work with. I, of course, want to know what you guys think of this brand new offering from Panasonic, the S1R II. Is it something that excites you? Does the 8K video play into your world whatsoever? Or is it the 6K open gate that's more exciting for you? Or is it that 4K 120 that's really impressive? And on the still side, do you care about 177 megabyte files from the high-res mode, or is 44 megapixels plenty for what you're working with? The autofocus has certainly made an improvement on this camera, but I want to see what you guys think about this camera once you get it in your hands. Make sure you leave comments down below, hit the notification bell, like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. It's been Dave from the Camera Store, and we'll catch you again soon.